Recently, I participated in the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam. This was my first ever Game Jam, and so I'm going to tell you how it went. It went alright. Alright, video's over. See you guys next time. Nah, I'm just kidding. The Game Jam started at 3 p.m. I joined the video premiere early, and for some reason watched people beg to be banned for about half an hour until the theme was released.
Welcome back to the GMTK Game Jam this year. For 2020, the theme is Out of Control.
I couldn't believe it. It completely blew my mind. For those of you that don't know, and that would probably be about 7,799,999,786 of you, the game I'm already working on is called Out of Control. It's a platformer where the controls randomize every single level. At this point, I felt personally obligated to join the Game Jam, so I contacted my cousin so that we could come up with some ideas for the game. After about 45 minutes of talking, we decided we were going to go with a arcade-style space shooter game with random controls. That way, we could still advertise Out of Control in the process without recreating Out of Control, and people thinking I just ripped off my own game. After that, I immediately got to work. The first thing I did was work on character movement, then immediately fix the character movement because I screwed it up. Next, I worked on bullets, and, it's whatever, it shoots bullets, cool. I also worked on adding multiple different types of shooting patterns for the player. You've got straightforward shoot one, and then you've got your spread, and then you've got your triple spread, and those were all going to be different sets of power-ups you could use. After that, I got started on the enemies. I first worked on a straightforward single bullet, then I worked on a burst pattern, and then I worked on a sine wave pattern for the bullet. The sine wave pattern had a lot of issues, and I could not figure out what was wrong with them for the most part. It appeared to work, then it wouldn't, then it would work again. After a little while, it was probably just a math issue, and I cleared that up, and now we have a sine wave bullet as well. Alright, the next day I started working on some enemy movement. I first had him follow a sine wave, then a zigzag pattern, and then finally I made him follow an elliptical path. With that all done, I started working on actually creating some of the enemies. And I gotta say, I think some of them turned out pretty well. Not to toot my own horn or anything. I designed the enemies with a sort of Lego building block kind of style to them. Let me explain a little bit. Each enemy expected to have 3 scripts on it. It had the main enemy brain, a spawn script, a movement script, and an attack pattern. So that would actually be 4 scripts. Basically, the enemy would start off and it would run the spawn script. I could choose to give the enemy a quick slide in or no special spawning. After the enemy was on screen, it would start to run the movement script. After a predefined amount of time, the enemy would activate its attack. As long as the enemy had the correct scripts, I could tell it to do any type of attack or any type of spawn I wanted. I'm sure there's a proper term for this type of coding method. I, however, do not know it, so we're going with the Lego building block method. At this point, it was finally time to start working on the spawning patterns. I chose to go with 2 different types of generators, one that would spawn stuff in a box, and the other that would spawn stuff along a line. It was also finally time for the player to start taking damage, so I worked on that as well as an explosion that would trigger anytime the player took damage to clear the enemies off of the screen. The last thing I did was worked on some of the UI and a little bit of the title screen so that I would be ready for tomorrow, just polishing up the game. It is now the final day, and I have 10 hours until this game has to be done and submitted. My morning started off with an hour-long call with my cousin to discuss some of the issues the game was having. One of the things we decided to change was actually make it so that instead of random controls just on the WASD keys, we decided that we would make half of the keyboard be up and down, and the other half of the keyboard be left and right, and each half would just flip which side of the keyboard it is on. At this point, I was really starting to feel the pressure of the Game Jam, and in my just focus to get the game done, I forgot to record anything that involved me actually doing the art or some of the music for the game, so here's what we ended up with when I finally remembered.
Second-hand shooter.
Hey, not bad. At this point, it's starting to really look like a full game. I think the pixel art looks good, and I'm really happy with how the AI computer voice came out. I think it really gives it an arcade feel. I now have only about 45 minutes until the project is due. I needed to immediately start doing a background, otherwise the game was not going to be getting anything, and that just isn't going to cut it. In 20 minutes, I managed to whip up a background, give it some parallax, and slap it in the game. It doesn't look terrible, that's for sure. It doesn't look as good as I was really hoping it would, but I no longer had any time to actually deal with that. I recorded a quick gameplay trailer and uploaded it to YouTube. After it finished uploading, I realized it had no sound, so I did it again, and finished submitting the project with 6 minutes to spare. I learned a lot on the Game Jam. The biggest thing I learned was that even the simplest things you don't have time for in a 48-hour game. There was so many little things that I would have loved to add to the game, but I just didn't have time. All in all, I'm really happy with how the game turned out. You can play it yourself over at itch.io. A link will be in the description below, and please let me know what you think of the game. If you enjoyed this video, I will be working on a couple of other videos hopefully in the future. I've had a lot of stuff in my queue, such as working on a Minecraft AI or making a game out of checkboxes. If you'd like to see those videos, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I believe you're also supposed to tell people to hit the bell, so please do that so you'll get notified. Okay, I don't really know how to end this video.